I'm glad.
Okay. All right, everybody, we're live. It's being recorded. Welcome. And the other thing I need to do is enable the live transcripts. So there we go. So thank you for joining session 6B, Emotional Intelligence and DEI Work with Keisha. This session is being recorded for our colleagues who could not join us in real time. We're using automated Zoom caption, as you saw, during this live event, and we will edit the recording transcript before we share them with you. At the bottom of the Zoom window, you will see a closed caption button, and you will see the live transcript text underneath that button. Select to turn them on or off as you prefer. Please post your questions for our presenter using the chat function. And then toward the end of the hour, we'll share how we can continue the conversation online and share some additional resources to support your teaching. Now, I'd like to hand the microphone over to our presenter, Keisha Jones.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Hopefully I don't cough during this. We have a lot of pollen. The weather has been up and down here in North Carolina, and so my allergies have been in overdrive. And so I've been talking a lot today. So hopefully I don't cough, but I am Keisha Jones. I'm the Dean of Student Engagement and Completion at Davidson-Davie Community College in Lexington, North Carolina. I have a passion for social justice and DEI work here at my college. I do many things. I like this, instead of the Dean of Student Engagement and Completion, I feel like I'm the Dean of many things here at the college, but I do help lead some of the equity work that we do at our college. And as it relates to emotional intelligence, I'm actually a certified emotional intelligence coach and practitioner. So I assessment, I talk to people about where they stand as it relates to emotional intelligence and kind of help them improve that to be better leaders, to be better DEI advocates, or whatever it may be. So this is a that I've actually done a couple of times and had to shorten it to make the 45-minute time frame. Hopefully I don't get to talking too much, but I think I think emotional intelligence is extremely important when we think about the diversity, equity, and inclusion work because it's really all about how we interact and engage with people, right? So what I'm going to do now, I am going to share my screen. Hopefully everyone can now see my screen. Yes. Okay. Move some things around.
Yes, we can see.
Move some stuff around and then I'm good to go. I have multiple screens in my office. I have 3 screens. That's not always good for presenting, I've come to learn. So jumping right into it, how can emotional intelligence help you survive when you're doing your DEI work? One of the things, the most simplistic thing that I feel like I can tell people when you think about emotional intelligence, just emotional intelligence in general, is it's really about how do you make your emotions work for you and not against you when you interact and you're communicating and you're working with people. And as we know with DEI work, this can be very challenging work. It can be emotional work. It is hard, is what I like to call hard work. And sometimes we can get frustrated. We're not always agreeing with what everyone says. And so being able to manage how you feel through this work is extremely important if you want to see the change that you're trying to invoke as you're doing the work. So as we know, diverse workplaces require us to think outside of our cultural boxes and encourage the same skills that I believe emotional intelligence promotes. So with diversity, equity, and inclusion work, we're dealing with people, right? And we're dealing with their feelings and their emotions and how they feel about the topics in which we're talking about. So what we want to do when we're doing this work and really in the things that we do on a day-to-day basis is we want to humanize it, right? There's emotion there. And if you can't manage your emotions and the emotions of others, the ability to effectively lead this work could be challenging, and you may not reap the benefits that you want to reap, and you may not be able to accomplish all the things that you want to accomplish because you don't necessarily know how to handle certain things as they arise when we're having these conversations. So emotional intelligence is a term developed by Salovey and Mayer, and then it was later developed by Daniel Goleman. And it refers to the ability to identify and manage one's own emotions as well as the emotions of others. So I like to think that emotional intelligence is also soft skills. And here at my college, we actually do, with some of our students through our career development department, teach emotional intelligence as a part of soft skills. But emotional intelligence involves a set of skills that can be learned and developed over time. So it's not like if you lack in one particular area that there's no possible way for you to ever improve. But what it does do is it allows you to understand and manage emotions to accomplish the outcomes that you have set and accomplish the things that you want to do as it relates to the work that you're doing in the DEI space. It helps you communicate appropriately and effectively. As I mentioned earlier, this work can be difficult work, and it's hard conversations, but they're honest conversations and uncomfortable conversations that we have to have. And being emotionally intelligent, to effectively communicate some of the things that you need to communicate in an appropriate manner to where people are willing to receive what you're trying to say. It allows us to interact effectively with others to achieve individual and group goals. So again, it goes back to how we engage and interact with people to accomplish our mission, our goals, our objectives, whatever we've set when we're doing this work. Being emotionally intelligent also allows us to make effective decisions. And I'm going to talk about this a little bit later, but you know, sometimes as people, we get emotional and we make emotional decisions. Our emotions drive the decisions that we make. And when you're doing DEI work, you can't let your emotions drive the decisions that you make for the things that you want to do within your organization or within your institution. You have to get to a place where you're able to manage that and make the best decisions that are best for everyone involved, where your emotions aren't really tied into that. And then it helps you manage stress to facilitate the success and the happiness and all the things that you want to be able to accomplish through your work. So as I mentioned, emotional intelligence is one of those soft skills that you can develop over time. Emotional intelligence skills account for close to about 90% of what we distinguish as an outstanding leader compared to an average one. The trick with it, though, is really identifying and understanding the gaps between how you view yourself and how other people view yourself. And so if you know anything about emotional intelligence, and I'm about to get into those 4 domains in a minute, self-awareness is a big component about that. And being self-aware, especially in this work, this is something that you know, as I've been doing this work over the years, the self-awareness that I have been able to achieve over the years has really helped me manage my emotions when we have those uncomfortable conversations or difficult conversations when things come up as we're doing this work. And I meant to mention this, feel free, I'll try to keep up with the chat, but if you have questions as we go, please drop that in the chat. So if you think about if DEI work is the destination, then emotional intelligence is that bridge that will help us get there. So with emotionally intelligent leaders and a helpful and shared vocabulary, difficult conversations about race, gender, sensitive topics can become feasible for us and something that we're able to do and accomplish the goals that we want to accomplish. Emotional intelligence gives DEI advocates and leaders the tools to better collaborate and to utilize the diverse skills and experiences of the people that are around them. So I've talked a little bit about what it is, and I've mentioned DEI, but why is it something that you should improve as a person that's an advocate for DEI work or someone that leads that within your organization? One, you have more effective communication. You know, you can help leverage empathy, problem solving, social skills to help come up with solutions and create strong relationships that ultimately will help you win people over and get them to invoke the change that you're trying to create where you're at. Knowing where you stand emotionally can be very helpful as you do this work. I just recently, so I'm a mental health first aider instructor as well, something that I do here at the college. And we talked about trauma and triggers, right? I think that's something that everybody really needs to understand, especially when you're doing this work. What are your traumas that then invoke some triggers? Because if you know where you stand and how those things impact you as you interact and engage and have these conversations with people, it can help you do the work, help you better control yourself as you're doing that work. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that as we go. So it helps you better have better control over your emotions. It allows you to identify the needs of your campus, your faculty, staff, and students more effectively. And it can help you unify your team that you're working with, accomplish whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish. Because at the end of the day, being able to identify and helpfully express your own emotions is a buffer against your emotions running wild and distorting your perception. So you want to be able to improve your emotional intelligence so that you can make better decisions as you're working through the process. So with this particular image, we all know we go through emotions, so many emotions in one particular day. Depending on how your day is going, you can start your day very up and something can happen and it can easily take you down. And so it's important for us to be aware about how we experience our emotions in one particular day and how that impacts how we make decisions. So if we think about what are emotions, they're like a piece of information that tells you something about how you're experiencing the world right now, right? It's one thing that's common amongst all of us. We all experience some type of emotion, but we've always been taught to either label our emotions positive or negative, right? We were taught that at a very young age. We were also taught how to express our emotions, right? Some of us were taught that it was okay to express your emotions. And then some of us were taught, depending on whether you were a female or a male, that you couldn't express your emotions in certain ways. And when you don't know how to properly be able to express your emotions, sometimes that can come out in how you interact and engage with others. So I want you all to really think about when you go through some of these phases, as you see this young lady here, how do your emotions affect your decision making? Do they impact them in a positive way? Do they impact them in a negative way? Have you ever paid any attention to how your emotions impact you when you're making decisions? Really thinking about, I can go into a meeting and we're talking about what we're going to do as it relates to some of the work, DEI work on our campus. And I can go into that meeting with a very positive attitude, depending on that conversation and the topics that we talk about. My attitude could totally shift and change. But the hope is that I recognize that and it doesn't impact the decisions that we make ultimately at the end of that meeting. And so even thinking outside of the DEI space, I think it's important for us to understand and know how our emotions impact the decisions that we make. So we're about to jump into the 4 domains. So with emotional intelligence, there are 4 domains: self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and relationship management. So we're going to break each one of these down. And the biggest thing that I'm going to give you today is really about strategies on how to improve these things. If you notice that as we talk, that you may need to improve in certain areas, my goal today is to tell you about emotional intelligence, but also provide you with ways to improve your emotional intelligence and think about it as you're doing your work. So starting with self-awareness, I think most of us feel like we're pretty self-aware, right? If you can drop in the chat, if you feel like you're pretty self-aware. A lot of us are like, yeah, I pretty much know who I am, what my triggers are, things about myself. And a lot of us think that we have high self-awareness, right? High self-awareness can help you make better decisions in situations and be more open-minded. But Harvard Business Review did a study, and what came back was that 95% of us report that we have high self-awareness, but actually only about 10 to 15% of us actually have high self-awareness. So what that means is majority of the people don't really know what their strengths and weaknesses are or how their words and behavior impact other people. So there are plenty of people in this world who are high achieving, very high achieving, but they lack in self-awareness and look at the world through a transactional or data-driven lens. The difference is that EQ and self-awareness play a role in your ability to inspire people, convince them to follow you, buy whatever it is that you're selling. So if you're thinking about the DEI work, buy whatever it is that you're selling, want to invest in the things that you do. So I'm gonna break down what someone with low self-awareness looks like and what someone with high self-awareness looks like. So people with low self-awareness generally cannot accept feedback. And I want you to, as I say these things and as we go through these, I want you to think about yourself, but I also want you to think about those people that you're working with. If you're working on a committee related to DEI or you're doing some work in that space with a group of people, do you recognize any of these character traits in some of these people? So low self-awareness, cannot accept feedback, may be unaware of what their strengths and weaknesses are. They don't really understand their goals and values. They may not know what things or people trigger an emotional reaction from them. They may have an inflated opinion of their own performance. They think they do very well, but in reality, they really don't. They hurt people without really realizing that that's what they're doing. It's never really their intent, but it ends up happening. And many of them make the same mistakes over and over. People with high self-awareness, they know where they are and where they stand with their feelings. They understand their strengths and their weaknesses. They know what their values and their goals are. They understand their triggers and how to manage triggers when they arise. They're able to accept feedback and learn from it. They see it as constructive criticism and to grow. When they present themselves with humility, and they make decisions with confidence. When they make a decision, this is my decision, and they move forward. And so I want you all to think about, do you see those traits in people, right? Do you see those traits in yourself? Of those traits, are they the low one or the high one? And one thing that I tell people, especially when I do coaching related to emotional intelligence, is be honest with yourself, like do a real reflection and be honest about where you stand so that you can improve and be the best version of yourself when you're trying to do this work. So something that I want y'all to do, normally we would do this as a group, but it's not much time for that. And you all can drop some of this stuff in the chat if you like. But I want you all to think about for yourself for 5, right? 5 for each. What are your strengths? What are your growth opportunities? What are your core values? And what are your triggers? Because I'm going to talk about a couple of things later on that are going to go back to some of this stuff. And I want you to know, like, what strengths do you have? What are some areas where you can grow? And then where are your core values? Because your core values are going to be very important when you think about this work and doing this work. And even when you interact and engage with people, do you interact and engage in a way that represent what your core values are? And you've heard me say triggers multiple times, and you will hear me say that as we continue, because we need to know what our triggers are. We need to understand what our triggers are and how they impact the way that we interact and engage with people. If I think about myself, one of my triggers is I don't like people talking over me. It's like I don't know what it does to me, but it does something. And I know the reason why, and I know who used to talk over me. And now I feel like I have a voice, right? And so when people talk over me, it's a trigger for me. I have to sometimes take a step back, like, wait a minute, whoa, let's start over. Can we go back? Wait a minute. And so that's really understanding those traumas and how those traumas that you have over time become triggers, because especially when you're doing this work, it's sensitive topics that we talk about. And depending on what some of your childhood traumas may be or other traumas that you've had in your life could be a trigger as you're doing the work. And what you don't want to happen is that trigger, because you're not aware of the trigger or how to manage it when it does happen to you, could significantly impact your ability to be able to push forward the agenda that you have, get people on board with the things that you want to do. So that's something that I challenge you, just from a perspective and professional perspective outside of DEI, understanding what those things are extremely important. So thinking about how we can improve our self-awareness. We want to always cultivate a learning mindset. You should always want to learn and to grow and hear other people's perspectives and opinions about the things that we're talking about. Get a better understanding of where they are coming from, because that helps you grow as an individual. That helps you be a little bit more self-aware when you're doing this work and you're working with other individuals. Observe the ripple effect from your emotions. Like, it's almost like I tell people, like having an outer body experience, right? Like you're standing on the outside of you, watching you behave. And as you're watching you behave, you're critiquing all the things that you do very well, you need to change, right? So I don't think that we ever really think about how our emotions and how we handle our emotions cause a ripple effect with other people. Right. So the point of being self-aware and how to improve your self-awareness is being able to understand how your emotions, what's that ripple effect attached to it. Know who and what pushes your buttons, right? We all have people on our campuses that we like, right? Because we're all professionals. But when we get in meetings, they might irritate our entire soul, right? Irks my spirit, right? You need to know that. And you need to be able to manage that when it happens, because it is what it is. We all have those people that we don't care for. We're professional and we're nice and we work with them and we're not disrespectful or rude or anything like that. But we do need to know who those people are and what pushes our buttons, because if we're not aware when it happens or if they do the thing, then our response may not always be the best response, right? So knowing who and what pushes your buttons is extremely important, especially when you're doing this work. Because if you get on a hot topic and it's somebody that you know already irritates and irks your entire soul, they say something that is outside of what you may agree with, you don't know what your response may be if you haven't already tried to manage that thing. So you don't want to turn people off. You want to bring people on, even with different perspectives that you have, to get them to move forward the work. Keep a journal of your emotions. I'm big on journals. With the people that I supervise, I ask them to keep a journal, but keeping a journal of your emotions and how you handle your emotions, and use that as a reflection. One, to see, are you in the same place that you were when you initially started working on yourself, right? And the other is for you to be able to say, dang, that happened. I wish I would have handled that differently, right? And you'll be able to do that differently the next time. And this is going back to the core values. Visit your values. Is what you value in alignment with the manner in which you conduct yourself, right? So understanding what your core values are extremely important. And I'm gonna run through some questions and I can share this later because I'm gonna go through it kind of quick, but these are some other things that you should ask yourself when thinking about self-awareness. What effect does my communication have on others? The way that I communicate, how does that impact the people around me? How would I describe the way that I make decisions? Do I make decisions slowly or do I make them quickly? What are the things that factor or influence me when I make my decisions? How does my mood affect my thoughts and my decision making? And how would I rate my self-esteem and my self-confidence? Because I don't think we realize when we have low self-esteem and low confidence, that shows through in how we interact and engage with people. It shows through with how we manage our emotions. It comes through in some of the relationship management that we have. So really knowing whether or not what does that look like and how does it affect your decision making? What are my emotional strengths? What am I really when it comes to my emotions? What are the things that I'm really weak in? What are the emotional things that I need to work on? Am I someone that's open to other perspectives, or am I easily swayed to do something else? Am I more or less skeptical? If I am, why? Am I someone that tends to focus on the positive or the negative traits of something in other people? What traits in others bother me? Triggers, goes back to triggers, right? Do I generally give others the benefit of the doubt? Why or why not? Do I find it difficult to admit when I'm wrong? Why or why not? And I'll send those questions, but those are things that you can ask yourself to start getting yourself to a place of trying to figure out whether or not how self-aware you are about who you are. So we're going to go to the next one, which is self-management. So ultimately, the most meaningful act of responsibility that leaders can do is control their own state of mind. We do that through self-control, achievement, initiative, and optimism. So if we think about self-management, it's being able to stay calm and positive during an inner crisis, and the ability to recognize and detach from your feelings rather than letting that drive your behavior and how you interact and engage with people. So good self-management allows us to focus under pressure, be adaptable, be in a state of continuous improvement, and set high goals for us, and then ultimately be able to reach those goals. So if we think about self-control, is being able to identify what you are feeling, being honest, of making that an honest determination of the underlying cause of what you're feeling, and then taking action to break the cycle of the negative emotion that you may be having. The achievement is about striving to improve and meet a standard of excellence. Initiative is something that mobilizes you to seize opportunities and allows you to take setbacks and obstacles in stride. And then optimism is really about remaining hopeful and resilient despite the setbacks, and being positive and persistent no matter what. So being able to have self-control and still be optimistic to be able to move your agenda forward is going to be extremely important as you continue through this work. So in thinking about self-management, one of the things is like be present in the moment. Try to manage whatever fears you have and be flexible. So when doing this work, many of us are always looking ahead and worried about things that haven't even happened yet. And what we need to do is focus on what's on the table right now. We all know with DEI work, it's going to be incremental changes. This is systematic stuff, right? This is stuff that's going to take many, many years for us to change. And so this is something I had to do for myself, being transparent. Like, I want to see stuff happen right now. Like, we got stuff going on. I need things, right? But I had to take a step back and focus on where we are right now. What have we accomplished right now? What are the things that we've done that have been to the students, faculty, and staff on our campus? And so try to be present, because when you're present, you appreciate the things that you have accomplished, and you focus on what you haven't accomplished, because you still have time to get to that place. So when you build your self-awareness and become fully present in the moment, you'll notice more of what's happening in the room. Because the other thing, when we're worried about everything else and not what's going on, we miss things, right? Think about what's happening in the room. You want to know people's body language. You'll be able to engage in a higher level of active listening. You'll have less miscommunication because you're able to better read the room and activate that creative brain to be able to address what's going on. So make sure that you try to be as present as possible when you're doing this work, even though we know there are a lot of things that we have that we want to do. Now, we're thinking about fears. Fear isn't always scared, somebody gonna come get you kind of fear, right? It's fear of, if I do this thing, it may cause this, or if we don't do this thing, this might happen. And I'm gonna talk about this later, but I'm a big sticky note kind of person, right? I have sticky notes at my house. I have sticky notes on my desk that have words of affirmation and things like that. And one, when I think about fear, that I have on my desk right now is false evidence appearing real, right? Because fear is just that, it's false evidence that appears real, and it sometimes can inhibit our ability to be able to move things forward. It can impact our decisions, and it can prevent us from moving the work forward because we're worried about all these different things. So going back to self-awareness, when you do notice your body is going into fear mode and experiencing physical sensations, you just stop and slow everything down, right? Most importantly, you don't make any decisions during that time. Sometimes we make decisions out of fear. You don't want to make decisions out of fear. You want to just kind of stop and take a step back before you do that. When thinking about flexible thinking, it goes back to you probably have a plan right now about what you want to see change as it relates to DEI in your space. You have a plan about what it's going to look like. You got a plan about who's going to do what, when you're going to do it, all the things, right? We all know plans change. So be okay, be flexible with the fact that I want to do curriculum. So here at my college, we have areas of discovery that we focus on every year. And so we'll focus on something for 1 year. Well, we've been focusing on curriculum for 2 years. And in my mind, we should have been somewhere else. We should have done more. We should have been somewhere else. And we're not there yet, right? But I've had to understand that and be flexible with, I'm dealing with faculty. I know what it is to deal with faculty. It's a little bit slower than it was when I dealt with HR, because HR was one of our areas of discovery. We was able to get through that within a year. It was done. We changed some policies and procedures and it was done. Both wrapped up and both put on the top. Faculty, we've been dragging them feet for 2 years, right? So understanding and being flexible that, you know, things are going to not always go as we have them planned. So ways to improve self-management, hopefully y'all can see that. Remain aware of your feelings. Paying attention to how you feel in the moment is the first step to more effective self-management of your behavior. I said this in self-awareness, keep a journal, create a list of situations or events that trigger negative emotions. I cannot express the importance of knowing your trauma and your triggers, like knowing that in this work and in your life, but I get off my soapbox for that. But negative emotions such as anger or frustration, then write out a strategy to deal with these situations in a positive manner. The more that we do to try to figure out the things about ourselves, the better we can prepare for when those things happen, how we're going to respond. Pay attention to self-talk. Tell yourself what it looks and feels like to be under control, focused, and composed, and repeat this consciously each day. So that kind of goes back to the sticky notes that I said I have. I have them here. I have at home. My son went through some depression. Now he does the same thing with positive affirmations. And so I don't think we understand the nature of positive self-talk and what it can do to us and how it can really truly help us accomplish goals and better communicate with people. And always remember that you have a choice. You have the ability to choose your response to any situation. So you can choose to fly off the handle, or you can choose to remain calm. But generally, we're able to remain calm when we're able to better manage ourselves and we have good self-management. So one of the things that I do when I do my coaching sessions, when I talk to people about self-management, I give them the analogy of a remote control, or back in the day we had radios, right? So think about it this way. You have the pause button. So you going through a stressful situation, something's going on, you're going to pause it, right? You're going to take the time to stop and think before you speak or act. There's a volume button, right, on you can take that volume up or you can take that volume down. So when you feel yourself getting emotionally charged, speak in a way that's calm and collected. So when we are triggered by people we don't necessarily irk our soul, as I mentioned earlier, right? We get to talking. And I don't think when people are frustrated, irritated, all of that, I think we realize how our voices get louder and louder and louder, right? So you got to turn that volume down, cut the volume down. Sometimes we need to mute, right? You press the mute button. We just need to be quiet. I'm a big advocate. Like I have words that I live by for the year. And one of mine was say less. And it was really about me practicing how I don't have to say something to everything. Everybody don't need to hear my voice. I just need to say less. I just need to be quiet. So it's the same thing, like when you are having these conversations and they're charged conversations, sometimes you just need to stop. So, and just mute yourself and listen to what the other person is saying. You also have the record button, which is like you're trying to get concentrated listening with the intent to learn more about the other person's perspective. So in other words, we don't listen to help figure out how to reply. We listen to understand. And as people, we always are ready to pounce. If we hear something that we don't agree with, or we ready to, nope, that's not what I said, that's not what I meant. No. Generally, we hold on to that one thing that's not what I said or what I meant, and then we miss the other stuff that they said. And so we're listening to reply and not listening to understand what people are saying. And it's really important that we pay attention to that and really listen to. And then sometimes we need to rewind, press that rewind button, right? And revisit something later on, or revisit it later to see what went wrong with that particular situation. And then lastly, and this goes back to that outer body experience I keep saying I want y'all to have, fast forward, like consider what will happen if you respond right now before you respond, right? Somebody says something racially charged or goes against your core values and your beliefs and all of those things, and you ready to say something because it's just a trigger for you and it's made you upset. You need to, in that moment, before you open your mouth, which probably it's a lot to think about, but fast forward to, like, if I say this right now, I may not have a job later on. Or I might really offend this person to where it took me a really hard time to get them on board with the work that we're doing. And this one moment shut all of that down, and they no longer can see the importance of this work that we do. So it's really important for you all to try to manage yourself, especially when you're getting frustrated. Thinking about social awareness, it's also known as empathy. So this starts with empathy and the ability to understand and share the feelings with someone else, including the people that you're working with, right? It's the ability to accurately perceive the feelings of others and understand how those feelings influence behavior. You know, empathy allows you to see and feel things from the perspective of others. It's tuning into others' emotions as you interact with them, will help you get a more accurate view of your surroundings, which affects everything from relationships to the bottom line. So we have different types of social awareness. We have emotional self-awareness, which is being emotionally aware. And that's a skill behind understanding what one is feeling and appreciating how different moods can impact those around us. Then we have self-regulation, which is the art of controlling the response to emotions and anticipating outcomes in an effort to avoid being emotionally reactive in personal and social situations. Motivation involves understanding how to use emotional factors to learn and achieve personal goals. Empathy is the skill of considering the emotions and circumstances of other individuals. Respect is best defined as having a regard for another person or group's experience, emotions, wishes, or rights. Kindness is the idea of being friendly and considerate to other people. And it's especially important even if you don't share their views or standpoint. And so we know when we do this work, we're not going to agree with everyone else. We're not going to share the same views that they have, but ultimately, you want to be empathetic. You want to respect what they say. You want to be kind about it. You want to listen actively. Like it's really a skill about being able to pay attention and take time to really understand what is being said and what that person is feeling in that moment. And then cooperation is an important part of finding a resolution or a way of working with other individuals or groups. And it's often looked at as compromise, right? It helps you to achieve your shared goals. So these are the things that help with when you're doing your DEI work and thinking about social awareness. So how do we, hit the ball, went too far, sorry. How do we improve your social awareness? One, you improve your listening skills. Pay close attention to the interactions that you have with other people. Identify other people's emotional states. Listen carefully to what they're saying and notice how they respond to external events, such as someone greeting them or asking them to do something. Think about your feelings. Think before you answer and give clear answers and watch body language. So it's all about paying close attention to your interactions with people. So you can ask yourself these type of questions to think about this. Did I listen actively to the person who approached me, or was I too busy to listen? The greatest example I can give of this is something we do every day. And it's good morning, how are you doing? We do care about how they're doing, right? But generally, I really don't have time to stand here and listen to really how you're doing, right? And so if you say that, we want to keep going, but really you started a conversation that you need to complete and actively listen to what they're doing. So if we're not going to stay and listen to the how you doing part, you just really need to say good morning and keep it moving, right? So now when I see people, it's a good morning, like especially if I know I'm on my way to a meeting, good morning, have a good day. And if they ask me how I'm doing, then I'm like, okay, I may have to stop here and talk for a second, but I'm going to receive that because they asked me how I'm doing. So check to see if you're too busy to listen to people. Somebody come into your office, are you too busy? Do you stop what you're doing and have a conversation with them? Did you ask questions about the content of what they were saying? And were you able to identify how they were feeling about what they were saying when they come in and talk to you? You know, did you change your body language or your facial expressions or your tone of voice? Like I'm one of those people who I speak with my face sometimes. So things that come out my mouth and what my face look like sometimes don't match, but I'm self-aware and I understand that that's who I am. And so I try really, really, really hard for that to not be the case, but I can't always do it. But I don't think we're always conscious of the character traits that we have and the things that we do and our personality traits and how those things come through and how they impact the people before they even talk to us, right? So all of this will always lead back to your self-awareness. The last one is relationship management, which at the end of the day is all about your social skills and whether or not you have good social skills. So I'm gonna jump right into how to improve those. Take feedback. When you're doing this work, relationship management is extremely important if you want to see some change happen, right? So take feedback. It's okay. It's all right. I mean, we are not perfect individuals. Where I go to church, it says no perfect people allowed when you come in the door, because we're not perfect people, right? Acknowledge the other person's feelings. When you are doing this work and you're working and you're talking about emotionally charged things, acknowledge their feelings. Build a culture of listening. Listen to people. You know, giving someone your full attention, minimizing distractions, and reflecting thoughtfully can reassure someone your sincerity about what they've communicated to you. Learn to recognize emotions in others. So being able to recognize and address both in yourself and in others allows you to experience empathy and thus connect with other people fully. Set clear expectations. Identifying and clarifying roles and responsibilities as you do this work as early as possible is important in terms of the behavior and the culture that you're going to create within that team, right? If everybody is on that team trying to do this work and everybody doesn't know what they're doing, then you're going to have people all over the place. Ask questions. Using questioning as a communication or coaching style allows others to be more focused. Questions can also encourage a culture of exploration. Develop shared values when working as a part of a group or team. Developing a set of agreed upon values provides a common bond among your team members. And then be a leader, providing clarity, acting objectively, and understanding your own leadership style will help to create a positive work environment. And lastly, this isn't on here, but use praise. The ability to provide authentic feedback is a key component of good leadership. And so in thinking about feedback, I want this to be you all's new mantra. I will embrace feedback. Feedback is positive. Feedback is learning. Feedback is growth. If you look at feedback as a good thing, it's an opportunity for you to grow and learn that can only positively impact the things that you're doing, right? Feedback has really gotten a bad rep. Like, people look at feedback as you're talking negatively about me. No, I'm just trying to ensure that I'm just giving you a different perspective. That's all, just a different perspective. So embrace feedback, and feedback is good. That's how we grow as people. Ask for feedback. When you're doing this work and as you're going along, ask for feedback. Always ask for feedback, because how you think things should go and operate isn't always how everybody else thinks. And then give feedback, but give it with no judgment. Stick to only, and don't make it personal. None of this stuff is personal. We have a goal that we're trying to accomplish to better our institutions, right? And change some of these systematic things. So we all have a common goal. How we get there may not be the same way, but try to not take things personal. And I will close with this quote from Daniel Goleman. If your emotional abilities aren't in hand, if you don't have self-awareness, if you are not able to manage your distress and emotions, if you can't have empathy and have effective relationships, then no matter how smart or intelligent you think you are, you're not going to go very far. And so I really appreciate you all. I hope that you all got some nuggets that you all can take and enjoy. Hopefully you can understand this Southern accent that I had over here. I have really enjoyed this presentation. So thank you for allowing me to join you all today.
Oh, wow. Keisha, that was amazing. And I love your Southern accent, by the way. Oh my gosh, I learned so much. I really appreciate how you portray emotional intelligence as a bridge. And I can see so much of how that can work in establishing relationships and resolving conflict. As you spoke, I saw so many things that I need to work on, and I'm thinking, okay, I need to get this recording so I can listen to it all again. So thank you so much, Keisha, and thank you everybody for joining us. You may find the Padlet link for the session in the program, and I also have included it in the link in the chat as well. Please stay connected and find us on social media via the contact page on the conference website. We have a few minutes, and so if Keisha wants to hang around and answer a few questions, we do have another session beginning at 2 o'clock, so feel free to kind of hang around for that one as well. But until our next presenters come on, if you want to stay on and ask Keisha a question or two, please feel free to do so. Again, Keisha, thank you.
You're welcome.
The next session that we have coming on at 2 o'clock is session 7B, and it's evolving the online equity rubric. So that should be another good one.
Keisha, are you available for a question? I'm Jill Ballard.
I am.
Hi, great presentation. A good question. Do you have an activity or an inventory sort of activity for a group to take this up together? My instructional design group in my university, I think, would benefit from this greatly. And I'd like it, I mean, I've done other sorts of things in different workplaces where we've all, figured out what our conflict style is or such. And I think